We're still talking about the electricity sector in Nigeria, and this time we're going to be looking at it holistically and, broaden our scope of our conversation this morning. Now, Nigeria's energy sector is in crisis despite $1.4 billion in loans and billions more in financial support. The national grid has collapsed 105 times in 10 years, plunging the country into darkness. And the frequency of these collapses is alarming. 93 times during President Buhari's 8-year rule and 8 times already in 2024. The consequences are staggering. Nigeria loses $26 billion annually due to power shortages, with businesses spending an additional $22 billion on off-grid fuel. This unreliable energy infrastructure undermines economic growth, deterring foreign investment and crippling key sectors like manufacturing, telecommunications, and retail. So today we'll be tackling the pressing issue, Nigeria's energy sector. Why the frequent grid collapse? What exactly is happening in northern Nigeria? How can we find a solution to it? The way forward. These are the conversations we'll be having, this morning. And joining us, we have Dr. Abubakar Tambawal, former Managing Director, Transmission Company of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
All right, straight to the conversation. From your experience as a former managing director of TCN, Nigerians expect to hear some certain level of response. I don't know if you came in time to hear the phone-in segment. People were lamenting, talking about the electricity situation in Nigeria. An overview. What's your take on the electricity in Nigeria's energy sector from when you were there and now you've left?
Well, I think the electricity sector is really in a big mess, in the sense that we could not address the basic needs of our populace. The generation is still inadequate, and transmission is having a lot of issues leading to this system collapse you are saying. While when you look at distribution sector, they are also having their own problems. Sometimes they lack the capacity to take the power that is being delivered to them.
Okay.
And also, when you look at the other aspect of it, liquidity crisis. Money is not coming in to service our operators. Like the GENCOs, they need to be fed because they procure gas from Nigerian gas company or whatever source. And failure to do that, they will not get that sufficient gas to generate electricity. So when you are having this kind of imbalance in supply and demand, you are going to have a lot of problems. When the GENCOs were sold up or they are privatized, we expect that from their agreement that they will expand. But most of them, unfortunately, they continue to rely on the infrastructure they inherited. So there is no expansion in generation. And with that, and of course, there is continuous expansion in demand. We are having industries, even residential, a lot of demand is coming up. And if you cannot generate enough to meet up with this demand, you will always be having issues. When you come to transmission, we have a lot of plans. While I was there and after I left, there were transmission expansion plan that has been properly drawn, but execution becomes a problem.
How so?
Well, because some of the contracts or some of the projects, they are not properly scoped, and some of them were diverted to political projects. You have expansion of transformers in a place where they don't add value, and lines too, where you are supposed to will this power from generating station to the end users. Most of these lines are weak. They have not been reinforced. We need to reconductor them to higher capacity thermal conductor that can take more power more energy, even with the present line. Because the issue of line, again, is this right of way. When you are to start a new line, you have to secure the right of way. And it's giving a lot of issues and problems to transmission. Some governors are really trying, because it's the responsibility of the governors to ensure that they provide the right of way whenever transmission lines are traversing through their states. But most of the governors are not concerned. There are a lot of issues which must be addressed in this respect so that these lines can be expanded. And again, we need a ring network loop so that when a source of power from one end is disrupted, like we are having in Shiroro Mando, we should have another route that takes power to Kaduna and the other northern states.
All right, I'll love to hold your thoughts there now, because we're going to dive into that in detail with time. Okay. But now you've spoken about a lot of issues that are happening, but let's focus on the transmission company, because this is affecting the transmission company. What are the structural deficits you've observed? You know, in your time, you were able to increase transmission and also improve transparency in TCN, which is what Nigerians always want to look forward to, transparency being put out there so Nigerians would know what is happening. But between your time, what you've observed now and when you were there, what are the structural deficits that, you know, you believe could be worked on? And when last were there worked on that you believed could be worked on that would at least give a better, you know, that would reduce the frequent grid collapse we're experiencing?
Yeah, like I said, actually, direction of projects according to the way they should is one issue that has caused a lot of problem for transmission. They have not been able to address the lines issue, like I said, because it's very critical to have all the power that is generated evacuated. Once you cannot evacuate power, I think you have failed woefully. So this is one issue which has not been critical, has not been seriously taken by those who succeeded me. And also, well, as we know, as you said, there is issue of this corruption, misdirection of resources. Before I left, we hardly get 30% of what we are getting as transmission charges, because transmission will be paid, just like generation will be paid for wheeling these charges. We are getting about 30%, but now they are getting the market. I mean, NEC has made it compulsory that transmission must be given 100% of wheeling charges, and they have been getting that money. So apart from federal government budgetary allocation, they're also having this internally generated revenue, which runs into billions. As I'm telling you, even in AADC, where I'm a board member, I know we pay TCN nothing less than 1.5 billion monthly. Talk less of other 10 distribution companies. So these are the kind of money that comes in. Well, instead of them to use it judiciously to improve the system, they go on frivolous spendings. They send their staff to Dubai. They give them hundreds of thousands of dollars to go and just train themselves or enjoy themselves. You can see the kind of vehicles, the kind of exotic cars they are buying. So misdirection of resources, I think this is one of the things. And they are not focused on looking at the real issues that is causing this system collapse. There is no adequate spinning reserve, which is supposed to be procured by system operator. The SCADA system is not in place, even though World Bank has come to the aid. I think they said 70% is now implemented. But by the time it is fully implemented, I'm sure most of the issues on this grid collapse will be solved. So these are some of the lapses which are observed.
All right, now I'm glad you opened our eyes to these lapses, and we hope that now corruption is a canker worm that has eaten deep into the nation, and you always see that corruption finds a way to fight back, but there's always a ripple effect on the lives of the average Nigerians at the end of the day. But you mentioned something about distribution, and let's talk about generation and distribution. Does Nigeria have the capacity to provide 24-hour electricity to Nigerians if all things being equal? If yes, what exactly is holding us back?
Well, I think Nigeria has the capacity. It's only the will, political will, to actually make it happen. Like I said, these generation companies, they have signed to improve on an annual basis or whatever their generation output. But I think apart from few mainstream, I think, Egbin and Transcorp Power, those are the only few companies that were able to improve on the generation aspect. And that is the essence of this privatization, because government feel that they cannot do it. So they need private investors. And when they are called in, they did not perform. So if they are doing according to their contract or the agreement, I'm sure we would have scaled through 20,000 megawatts by now.
Okay.
That does not mean that government should hands up completely on the issue of generation, even though it is sold off. Recently, Zungeru was commissioned. It is all undertaken by federal government. We are getting about 700 or 750 megawatts from there about 4 months ago. So we also expect government to be proactive, to be more committed in terms of developing Mambila, which we can get up to 3,000 megawatts. Initially, 1,000 can be obtained, but we are having a lot of issues there. In the long term also, I know government is thinking of deploying nuclear energy for generation. That one is expensive, and I believe Nigeria can do it because other countries have done it, and that can give us stable and qualitative, quantitative power.
Okay, but they're saying that Nigeria supplies electricity to certain other countries who are not experiencing electricity issues as much as Nigeria does. So what are we doing differently in terms of supplying, and why can't we apply the same method back here in the country?
That will bring me back to distribution side, which you have asked me. The reason why we cannot give this 24 hours is because of the lapses in distribution. If you as a customer and me cannot be served properly, I will feel hesitant to go and pay. If I don't have meter where I can justifiably pay for what I have consumed, I will not pay, instead of giving crazy billings as it is happening. So if we are able to get this right, get all our customers properly metered, that's what's happening in Niger Republic, where we are giving power to them. They have, almost everybody is metered, and they don't even advertise for people to come and pay. People willingly come and pay. So that is why whatever power we give to them, they pay us promptly. And other countries too, like Togo and Benin, that we the same manner. They have very good and fortified distribution system and revenue collection system that will enable them to pay back either their generators or to pay back Nigeria the power that they have consumed.
All right, let's talk about security issues and vandalism. Seeing what happened with the Shire Kaduna line that is currently, we see the north experiencing over 10 days and more of blackout and blackouts there in the north. How much would it cost, to fix this? And what ripple effect would it have on the TCN?
Well, I may not be in a position to say.
To give the full details.
Yeah, but all I know from the report from TCN is that 2022 to date, they have spent 29 billion naira to repair 266 towers that have been brought down as a result of this vandalism. So you can imagine, there are 3 towers now, 330 kV towers in Shiroro Mando line, which I believe each one of them will not cost less than 100 million or more to repair. So there are issues there, as you know. We know of the security challenge that is causing the delay, but hopefully from the presidential directive that was given, we hope they will mobilize the security apparatus to ensure that TCN staff who have claimed that they have all the materials and everything ready to get these towers restored, if they are given the security backup. But to me, I think it will take a minimum of 2 weeks to get those towers replaced.
All right, so we still have most likely 2 weeks or more to get these powers replaced. Now let's talk about policy and regulatory improvements. Are there specific policies that are hindering, the electricity sector in Nigeria? And what policy would you, or what reform are you looking forward to seeing with time that could meaningfully impact the power sector and change the lives of Nigerians?
Well, reforms have been undertaken by this government, and particularly the signing of the Electricity Act by Mr. President. I think it's a good one because we'll be able to get the states participate actively in terms of the power sector delivery. They are now given the mandate to generate, to transmit, and even distribute and sell power to their states. So I think this one is in a good move, because particularly in the north, we have a lot of sunshine. Solar can be deployed, so that in the event of this kind of grid collapse or issues with the transmission line, if each state has a power station generating at least 10 megawatts to 30 megawatts, 50 megawatts, we wouldn't have been in this situation. So I think these are some of the reforms which I think governors should be taken seriously to ensure that they fortify their states in terms of power delivery.
Okay, now talking about technological upgrades, Nigerians have suggested that, why do we have a nation reliant on just one grid? Aside solar that you mentioned, what other upgrades could be done, to make the pressure on the grid not as much as it is?
Well, people are talking about regionalization of the grid. To me, it's okay, but the only issue is that if you regionalize it, some regions are not having enough generation, particularly here in the north. Most of the generations are in the south. And if you island or segregate it, it means they will be having more power, and other states will be having less power. So unless there is a means of exchanging the power, which can be arranged, I believe that is an option which can be considered, where it needs a lot of planning to ensure that regions where they don't have sufficient power will be able to import power from other regions of the grid that has sufficient power.
All right, now let's talk about global best practices while we're winding down our conversation. What are those lessons you think Nigerians can learn or pick up from other nations, that have found a way to hack these issues of electricity, and, so we would avoid frequent blackouts that we're experiencing today?
Well, I think, first of all, unless we're able to bridge the gap between generation and distribution, we will have a lot of issues. So these countries that have developed, I think they have sufficiently large generation which surpass the demand, that is the distribution. And also, when you come to transmission, they have a lot of redundancies in the lines, which will enable switching of power from one side to the other side. In Nigeria, we are having mostly single or line transmission. They are not looped or ringed. For example, now if we are having another link just for the northern states that can take power from Kainji side. Kainji delivers power to Benin, Kabi and part of Niger, to Kebbi and Sokoto and Zamfara. If there is a 330 kV line that comes to Kaduna or to Katsina, which is existing, that would have briefed that loop so that we can transfer the power in the event of one side being distracted. So we have to have that redundancies, and unfortunately from the transmission expansion plan, all these have been critically itemized, but they are not being implemented. That is the issue. I remember, I must say here, that about last year, there is a contract that is supposed to be signed to have additional line from Shiroro to Kaduna, double circuit line. Unfortunately, it was frustrated by the immediate past MD of Kaduna Disco, thinking that it is the Disco that is supposed to award this contract, while it is the responsibility of transmission to award the contract. So these are the kind of issues which sometimes are personal that can cause havoc to the nation.
All right, finally, now before we go, what's your word out there to Nigerians? Because they expect a lot from electricity distribution, transmission, generation. They expect a lot from the electricity sector. They expect that we should have moved past all of this. So what's your word out there to Nigerians in terms of their expectations?
Well, in terms of the expectations, they should be more optimistic, because government is also showing a lot of commitment in terms of making electricity available. And also on the part of customers, I think they should be patriotic enough to pay their bills as and when due. Yeah. And also, these installations, they are, like I can say, personal to them. They should not consider them as public, as just they should be able to protect and guard them. Where they see people trying to vandalize, they should report. And also, like the villages where these transmission lines traverses, if they see any unusual movement, they are supposed to also inform. Absolutely. So that all proper measures will be taken to avert calamity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been good to have you here on the show this morning. It's been good to have you. It's been actually a very eye-opening and interesting conversation. I hope our listeners have been able to pick one or two things from what you've told us this morning. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right, in the studio, we just had a very detailed conversation with Dr. Abubakar Tambawal, former Managing Director, Transmission Company of Nigeria, and he had a very eye-opening conversation with us and gave us the inner happenings of what is happening in the transmission company. We hope that it will be fixed, and we hope to see a Nigeria one day where we would experience uninterrupted 24 hours of electricity.